Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Connection. We are going to begin, as always, with our prayer of surrender. But then I'm going to do something that I don't believe I've ever done before on a Tuesday. I'm going to read a devotion from a different day. Now, I know you all are expecting something a little more exciting when I said I've never done this before, but maybe next time. All right, so let's start with our prayer of surrender. Spirit of truth, carry me where you will. Bring to me what you will. Take from me what you will. Awaken in me what you will. The Christ man is around me. The Christ mind is in me. The Christ power flows through me. And the Christ mystery exists as me. I believe it. I perceive it. And now I receive it. I am surrendered. Amen. And so it is. So instead of the devotion that is scheduled for today's date, we are going to skip ahead a few days to Saturdays, which is, of course, February 14th, also known as Valentine's Day. And I won't be stepping on anybody's toes because it falls on a Saturday this year. And Saturday is one of the days that we do devotion on our own. So it's not like you'll be repeating this anytime soon. And today's devotion we've had before and we will have again in the future. But it all works out. It's just we're gonna be talking today about love and about being your own Valentine. So it just fits a little better. So the title is The Experience of Me, and we'll read together now our affirmation. Today, whether I am married, dating, or single, I will allow myself the experience of loving who I am. Where I go and who I am with may change over my life's journey, yet I will always be with me. This Valentine's Day, I choose to experience the highest version and best expression of me. All right, so one of the most important lines in that affirmation, in my opinion, is this: where I go and who I am with may change over my life's journey, yet I will always be with me. Have you ever heard the statement, wherever you go, there you are? When you're just listening to that on the surface level, it seems almost like a dumb statement because it's overly simplistic and obvious. Well, of course, wherever you go, there you are. Duh. But listen to it when I shift the emphasis to one particular word. Wherever you go, there you are, which means there's absolutely nowhere you can go to get away from yourself. That's the one person you're always going to have to live with and can never walk away from is yourself. Which is why the relationship you have with yourself and the level of love you have for yourself is vitally important. I also heard someone say once that you are the only person who is going to be present at every major event or turning point in your life. And that's really true. Even if you have an extremely close family, even if you have a group of lifelong friends, there is no one other person who is going to be there with you through everything, through all the highs and lows, except you, except yourself. You're going to experience all of those things. You are the only one who will be present at every single moment of your life. So why am I making such a big deal about this? Because whether we realize it or not, that fact has a lot to do with how we view love as a whole. Your eyes, okay, are the only ones that you will ever look through to see the world around you. Have you ever thought about it that way? I think I've talked about this before. Your unique personal filters are the only lens through which you will ever, or through which you can ever experience life. We talk about getting in someone else's shoes and having empathy and trying to see things from another's perspective, and we can do that to a degree, but we can never fully experience life through someone else's eyes. It's always our own. So what does that have to do with love or the way you experience love? Well, when you tell someone you love them, and my brother has talked about this before, what you're really saying is that you love the way you feel when you're with them. Now, this is you love the part of you that they bring out, or the version of yourself that you are when you're around them, because that's all you can truly ever know. Life, as you are experiencing it through your own eyes, your own filters, and your own lenses. When you tell someone you miss them, what you're missing is the feeling of their presence, okay? But where is that feeling located? Inside you. So what you're actually missing is the you that you are, or the you that you experience, the way you feel when you're with them. So this is a concept that is a little bit difficult to grasp at first, but once you get it, a lot of things become clear. I know my brother tells a story about the first time Bishop Carlton Pearson said this, when he told him, my brother told him, he said, "I love you." And he said, "Well, you love the part of you love who you are when I'm with you." And my brother's like, "No, I love you." He goes, "I understand what you're saying, but in all of us, what we love is how that person makes us feel, or how we feel when we're in their presence." So this is when you begin to realize just why loving yourself is actually the greatest love of all. Because if you can experience the best and highest version of yourself when you're all by yourself, then your relationships with everyone else are just icing on the cake. Now, we could also go a little bit deeper and say that because we're all one, okay, on an energetic level, everyone else you love is really just another expression or an extension of you, okay? So that works too. But to keep it simple, let's just focus today on loving ourselves first and foremost, because when that love is in place, then all the other relationships you have will automatically fall into place as well. So then the body of the devotion ends with this. This Valentine's Day, which is coming up in a few days, fall in love with someone, with Paris, with an elegant restaurant, or earlier it mentioned falling in love with the idea of love, which is also fun. But most of all, fall in love with yourself, the one and only constant in your life that will never leave you. All right, let's say the ending prayer together. Manifest love. On this day, I pray to fall in love with the divine, perfect, beautiful creature you breathed into existence. I have fallen in love with me, and I will never fall out. Amen. Okay, so great devotion, and we are going to continue in that vein with our teaching today, which I'm calling, as I said earlier, Be Your Own Valentine, in honor of it being Valentine's Week. Let's celebrate all week, Valentine's Week, because why not? Why not celebrate? It's as good a thing to celebrate all week as anything else. So the first thing I want to talk about are some common misconceptions that many of us have about what love is that we have learned from our culture. The following is from a teaching I gave some years back called Love Means Never Having to Say You're Sorry and Other Lies. And I began that teaching by reading you some old wives' tales and urban legends and asking you how many of them you had heard, which will become important later on. And then I talked about some song lyrics, and they went like this. I think I heard it on a commercial. And it was one of those commercials that, when you're listening to YouTube and you get the same commercial every few minutes, and so it just repeats over and over. So this song kept repeating over and over as I was trying to listen to this video. But it was just this little phrase of this song. It said, to love, to love, to love me. I needed to lose you to find me. To love, to love, to love me. I needed to hate you to love me. Now, that's a truly awful message. It reminded me, when I heard it, of a line from one of my favorite movies, a movie back in the 70s called What's Up, Doc? Has anybody ever seen that movie, What's Up, Doc, with Barbara Streisand and Ryan O'Neal? And at the end of the movie, they did a really cute thing. So I'm going to have to give you a little background so you'll understand. So this movie, What's Up, Doc, came out in the year 1972. But 2 years earlier, in 1970, Ryan O'Neal had starred in a movie called Love Story with Ali MacGraw, and it was a tearjerker. It had been nominated for Best Picture the next year in 1971, as well, I believe, as Ryan O'Neal and Ali MacGraw were both nominated for Best Actor and Best Actress. And I think that it actually won the Oscar for Best Musical Score, even though it didn't win Best Picture. But it had become a hugely successful movie about this young couple who falls in love and gets married, and then the wife is diagnosed with terminal cancer. And the big scene that everyone remembers is when he's looking for her and he's running down the street with that Oscar-winning music playing in the background. You know, it's "Where do I begin to tell the story of how great a love can be?" It's that song. So, and he finally finds her sitting on their front porch steps, and she's crying. And I don't remember the exact context, but apparently they had an argument. And so he apologizes to her. And so she looks at him, you know, through these sobs and very dramatically says, "Love means never having to say you're sorry." And that line kind of stuck in the lexicon of pop culture. So that movie had come out in 1970. It was nominated for a bunch of Oscars the next year in 1971. So this is the very next year, 1972. Ryan O'Neal is in a movie called What's Up, Doc? With Barbra Streisand, and it's a comedy. It's at the complete other end of the spectrum from Love Story. And at the end, he and Barbra Streisand find themselves on a plane together, and he apologizes to her for something that he said, and she says the same thing to him, purposely, though, spoofing the movie Love Story. She sits there and bats her eyes, and she says, "Love means never having to say you're sorry." And so then he pauses a second, and then he says, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." And so... anyway, that was just a really funny, you know, back then everybody saw the same movies because we didn't have streaming and all that. You had to go to the theater and see the movies. And so everybody had seen the movie 2 years before, so they got the joke. But when I heard those song lyrics, I needed to lose you to find me. I needed to hate you to love me. I said to myself, that's the dumbest, most unenlightened, unevolved thing I have ever heard. But just like the old wives' tales and myths and urban legends, a lot of people believe that, okay, because that's what they've been taught love is. That in order to believe that, you have to look at love, which the point I'm getting to is what we have been taught. A lot of us have been taught by culture that love is what is called a zero-sum game. And we've discussed this before. The definition of a zero-sum game is a situation in which one person's gain is the equivalent of another's loss. Or in other words, in order for someone to win, someone else must lose. Thus, I needed to hate you to love me. That way of thinking is born out of a scarcity mentality where the basic premise is, look, there's only so much love to go around, rather than an abundance mentality that believes there is an endless supply of love. You have to be coming from an all or nothing stance and mindset in order to make statements like, I needed to lose you to find me, or I needed to hate you in order to love me. On the surface, those statements might sound like they are self-empowering because they're implying, but they're really not. They're really anything but, because what they're implying is that two opposing ideas cannot be true at the same time. And we, of course, here at Spirit and Truth know that they can. Okay, so reactive people, I'm going to go into this now. Reactive people tend to get worked up and excited. This is another thing we've been taught by our culture that's a similar mindset and feeling. Reactive people tend to get worked up and excited about what they are against, okay? The protest mentality. You're not going to, we're not standing for this, or you're not going to do this, not in my name, or whatever. They love to push back against things. This is the dualistic, zero-sum mindset of hating you to love me. Dualistic thinking is all about reacting. That's down here on this lowest level of consciousness. Creative people, on the other hand, people who believe they are made in God's image, get excited and are passionate about the things that they love, not the things that they hate, not the things that they are against. They love to promote things they believe in: art, music, serving others, etc. When people approach them with negativity, they can more easily ignore it because they just don't have the time or the energy to react, okay? They're too busy loving, creating, building something new to be reactive to this whatever nonsense it is that's going on. Reactive people condemn those who do not believe exactly as they do. Creative people say, just as Jesus the Christ did, if you're not against me, you're for me. There is a story in the Bible, Luke chapter 9, where John said to Jesus, Master, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him because he does not follow with us, okay? He's not part of our little 12, so he's not allowed to cast out demons. We said, no, you can't do that. So there it is, that scarcity mentality. There's only so much demon casting out power, okay, that you got to, and so if this guy over here doesn't do it exactly the way we do it, if he doesn't sit in all our meetings, if he doesn't come to our church, if he doesn't read our book, if he doesn't do it exactly like we do it, then he's taken some of the power and there won't be enough left for us. There's not enough room in that mentality for me to do it this way and you to do it that way. So if you don't do it exactly like me, you have to stop. I forbid you. I protest. There is not enough room in that mentality for me to love myself and you at the same time. Okay? I've got to choose myself over you in order to find self-love. But what did Jesus say to him? Do not forbid him, for he who is not against us is on our side. So he's saying, is he casting out demons? Is he doing a good thing? Then leave him alone. If he's not putting demons in people, then he's on our side. So it is always our choice whether to live and walk through the world with this scarcity mentality, where you're always having to guard who you are or what you feel you have, including your self-love and self-esteem, or to walk through life with the abundance mentality of, I can love me and you at the same time, even if we are not together anymore as friends or in a romantic relationship. Maybe that part didn't work out, but I don't have to hate you in order to love me. All right. One path is where we only see things one way, that there's only one right answer and everything is black and white. And the other is a more spiritually mature path of being able to hold two contrasting ideas in our minds at the same time and navigate between them with a little nuance and a lot of wisdom. So, love, particularly self-love, is not a zero-sum game. That's the moral of that story. Moving on now. I want to read a short piece by Amanda Ellis, who is describing here what unconditional love is in a really beautiful way. She says, unconditional love is the love that holds the answers to all. It's the love that can stop you in your tracks, command you to yield into a soft yet strong embrace, and wrap you in an energy of perfect peace, stillness, and support. Now, I want to stop right here and just remind you of a story I told you a while back that to me is the best representation I think I've ever heard of unconditional love. Remember the story I told you years ago about the woman in Rwanda? Her name was, she's got a really interesting name, Immaculée Ilibagiza, I believe is her name. And she had to be hidden for 3 months in a bathroom of because the other tribe that's when they were killing all the people of her particular tribe. And the pastor hid her in his bathroom along with 6 other women for months. And so when everything was over and they came out, she was given the opportunity to go visit the man in jail who had killed her entire family. And the jailer, the prison guard, was a friend that had grown up with her, and he said, look, I'm going to let you in this room with him. He's handcuffed to the table. He can't do anything. He says, and he wasn't supposed to do this, obviously, but he goes, I'm going to leave a bat. But he said, and I'm going to walk away. So he gave her the opportunity, if she had wanted revenge or that whole eye for an eye, which you'd feel like doing that if you came face to face with someone who had taken the lives of your entire family. And she tells the story, though, of how her heart was pounding so hard and she didn't know how she was going to respond when she walked in that room and saw the person. And she said when she walked in and saw him, it was like this. It reminds me of what Amanda is saying here, that it's a love that stops you in your tracks and commands you to yield into a soft yet strong embrace and wrap you in an energy of perfect peace, stillness, and support. She just sat down and she looked at him and she started crying and she said, I forgive you. And when she left and people would interview her about this later, she would say, they would say, why in the world did you react that way? And she said, I don't know. She said, I didn't have any expectations going in of how I was going to feel. But she said, when I sat down and looked at him, that's all that came to me. And she had an experience in the bathroom of the pastor's home earlier she would talk about how many nights she would think about, she would just be filled with hatred for all of these people that were doing this. And then she said that she saw on the wall of the shower, she said she saw a vision on the tile of people she had admired her whole life, like Dr. Martin Luther King and Gandhi and people. And then she saw on this side all of these hateful people. And she said, okay, if I hate these people that are doing this to me and my family, I'm going to be on this side with all these hateful people. I want to be on this side with the loving people. So she made that decision beforehand. And that's what led her, I believe, when she walked in, that unconditional love just stopped her in her tracks. And she said, I can't harm this man. I don't know why he did what he did, but I love him. Which to me, when we're talking about unconditional love, that's the best story I can think of. And that's what she's describing here. She says, this is a love at its most powerful, its most urgent, and its most felt. None can ignore this call back to love, for it is the natural state from where you came. It is who you are in your essence, and that to which you will return. So that's why she felt it. She had gotten in touch with herself. She had truly learned to love herself, and therefore her entire essence was love. So when she walked into that room, there was no hate in her heart. There couldn't be. There was no room in her heart anymore for hate, because she had embodied perfect unconditional love. Amanda continues, we have almost forgotten the true power of love when it is in its purest form, untainted by greed, sacrifice, judgment, or demand. Okay, I love those words. Okay, greed, that means, again, I'm going to take all the love and you can't have any. I've got to choose myself over you. Sacrifice, we've also been taught that love is sacrifice, how much you're willing to sacrifice and hurt for someone, which that's not true love either. Judgment or demand, or demanding that someone be a certain way or behave a certain way in order to get your love. So none of those things are true unconditional love. She says, we mostly play out conditional love in our relationships here on earth, seeing the imperfect in another and judging it. Yet, true unconditional love is within us all, even in the one we judge so harshly. If we could only focus on the unconditional love in one another and see that seed grow, it would cancel, I couldn't read my own handwriting, it would cancel out the growth of negativity, blame, and disharmony. For energy goes where it is directed. Okay, remember what I said? You get to choose every day whether you're going to walk through the world with this scarcity mentality of it's not enough, I don't have enough, there's only so much of this, so I've got to get mine and protect it, or there's enough for everybody. There's enough for me to do it my way and see it my way, and there's enough for you to see it your way and do it your way. If you direct your energy into pure love, then you'll receive pure love. If you direct it into blame, you'll only receive more things to judge. Unconditional love is within all things in this great universe that was made from its divine sparks of radiance and perfection. It is the way shower that reminds us that all is well and nothing is lost. To those who wrong you, those who fight you, those who misunderstand you, your greatest weapon is not force or retribution or even protest, but love, love, love. Unconditional love steadies the heart, nourishes the soul, and cares for all your wounds and battle scars. Nothing is stronger than unconditional love. It shows compassion where it is needed. gives strength when times are tough, and provides comfort to all who seek it. Unconditional love is not weak. On the contrary, it is the greatest force in the universe. So, thank you, Miss Amanda. Her words are always uplifting and beautifully stated, as are those that I'm now going to read you from a woman named Danielle Laporte, which I've read to you from her book before, How to Be Loving. In the first chapter, which is called Journey to the Center of Your Heart, she begins by defining what a spiritual practice is. She says, spirituality is the practice of thinking with love. I really love that definition. Spirituality is just the practice of thinking with love. Your heart is open all of the time, actually. You can't ever close your heart, no matter what. We only think we open and close our hearts. Our mind manufactures thoughts that veil our loving awareness like clouds floating through the sky. Some happiness billows by. There goes a wisp of concern, a rain cloud of worry, starry ideas. These clouds of emotion, thought, and pure inspiration are naturally coming and going all the time. And all the while, there's the sky itself, accommodating absolutely everything in its vastness. The sky is pure being, always allowing and expanding. The sky doesn't ever constrict or close. It can only ever be the sky, discovering more of its skyness. The same is true of your heart, your true loving nature. It's always present, always opening to more of itself. No amount of thinking can alter your true loving nature. Just as no individual weather pattern can swallow the sky, there's no emotional pattern that can affect your divinity. There are just thought formations passing through the limitless, luminous space that is your heart. Okay, time out. Remember, we've talked before about the fact that our inner being, our higher self, our spirit, that part of us that is divine, is never afraid. It's never offended. It's never hurt. It is always calm and steady and even because it is grounded in this pure, unconditional love. All right, so that's what she's talking about. She says, you think you're closing your heart down, but that's just your minds and your mind and the thoughts that your mind is producing that are just kind of floating through the big, huge space that is your heart, just like weather floats through the sky. Back to the book. We don't close our hearts to one another, to ourselves, or to things that happen. We just shut down our minds like closing blackout curtains on the sun. Spirituality is really just the practice of open-mindedness, of intentionally not putting blocks up to life. When we open our minds, we keep finding more and more of this incredible heart energy, eternally patient and endlessly vibrant. Enlightenment is when we allow our mind to fan out so wide that it dissolves into unbounded, loving awareness. We go from thinking to pure being. In the sky of the heart, there aren't walls of identity to get in the way of unity. All right, so what does my brother always talk about? At Spirit and Truth Sanctuary, we leave our labels at the door because we are only our gender, our race, our sexual orientation, our political or religious affiliation for a little while. And that's never who we really are anyway. Those labels, those identities, which she describes here as walls that get in the way of our unity and our oneness, are just temporary. She goes on. The heart's wisdom blows personality constructs to stardust, and it lays the true reality bare. In the center of the heart, everything is seen for what it is, and it's all welcome, all of it. That's true love. That's divine love. I want to add right here something that I borrowed from Andrew Martin. He says when he's talking about these emotions and thoughts, he says, everything is welcome, but only love can stay. And that's a choice. That, in a nutshell, is the purpose of any spiritual practice, okay? What Danielle is saying is that our heart is always open and welcoming and accepting. We consider everything. We resist nothing. But then we choose the things that get to stay. And these things, thoughts, feelings, emotions, etc., we choose which ones can stay, and we choose which ones that we bless and send on their way because they are not part of the most productive path for us, which will always be the path of love. So yes, everything is welcome to float across the sky, to come into the awareness of our heart, but only things that are loving in nature can stay. And we are the deciders of what gets to stay and what has to go. Okay, once more back to Danielle. When we're curious about and committed to loving, we think very differently. Rather than thoughts that act as love blockades, more unifying thoughts rise up from our intention to love. We don't have to go looking for higher thoughts outside ourselves. We just have to be still often enough to realize that we're part of something infinitely creative and inclusive. And then she repeats her opening statement and she expands on it a bit. Open-mindedness, spirituality, is the practice of thinking with love, and we can effectively train ourselves to keep returning to love via our thoughts. First, we refer to our heart for the best way to proceed. Then, we recruit the mind to support the heart. This is what it means to have our priorities straight. First, let the love flow. Then, direct that love with your intelligence. This is divine order. Wow, okay, I love that definition. I love that whole thing. When we think with love first, we form fewer conclusions about who is worthy and who is unworthy, what's right versus what's wrong, or whether it's too late or right on time. Love sees the perfection in the person and in the moment, and then proceeds from there to expanded awareness. When you open your mind to see what's really going on with a person or any situation, the beautiful parts become more evident. All right, so I want to stop right here. This just kind of popped into my mind. Yesterday, I was sometimes in the reminder section on my phone, I'll just put little thoughts that come into my head. And I was reading through them again yesterday, and I saw one, and I don't know what context I wrote it in, but I thought it was interesting, especially in light of this, and what we're about to go into more, trying to see the beauty in things. However, the other side of that coin, the phrase I had written said, let the ugly parts do their job. Okay, sometimes the ugly things come into your life to do a specific job. Let them do their job. Let the ugly parts of life do their job. Okay, insight begins with the desire to truly know what's going on. And sometimes when we find out what's truly going on, there's some ugly, okay? It can be as simple as pausing in the middle of an emotionally heated moment with someone and thinking, I wonder what they're experiencing now. That is an act of love. When we live more reflectively, we operate less reactively. With every meditation or earnest question, with each honest prayer, given blessing, or intimate conversation that we have with ourselves or with another, the heart gives us confirmation about how massively beautiful life really is. The heart will always choose to focus on what's working. All right, I love that too. What's the big question we always talk about asking ourselves? Is it working for you? It's not so much about, is this right or wrong? Is this good or bad? Does this fit into this particular dogma or agree with that particular philosophy? The only question is it working or isn't it? Your heart always knows the answer to this and will gravitate toward what works. But many of us, she says, aren't raised to live very reflective lives, and our productivity-obsessed culture won't stand for it. Instead of reflection, receptivity, and responsiveness, we tie ourselves to a looping track of reactiveness. And then we mostly sleepwalk through our days until we inevitably get hammered by some painful occurrence, and only then do we wake up to glimpse our higher purpose. And if we don't then dedicate our lives to that higher purpose, to love, then we'll probably doze off again until the next bout of hard-to-bear discomfort or loss arrives. We think we're really smart with our strategies for status and self-preservation, okay? For protecting ourselves, for I'm hating you to love me, okay? But running from love while looking out for number one is a high form of foolishness, because unconditional love is what we all want and need most. When you get still and take the time to consider how beautiful life really is, even with the ugly parts, you'll have more compassion and acceptance, here it is, for the ugliness and the chaos. Your stillness will increase your capacity for holding the dichotomies and paradoxes of your life, for the two opposing things to be true at the same time that we talked about earlier. And then it will become more apparent to you that we are all participating in an ongoing miracle. Looking within is how we awaken to the true reality, because it has never been outside of us. It is only a loving gaze that can see the truth clearly. It takes practice, but if you become still more often and look inward, you will see that your heart is as big and as open and as eternal as the sky. And that is the end of chapter 1 of her book, which was beautiful. So we're going to end today with some excerpts from the last chapter of her book, which is called Focus Forward. My husband often says to me, you usually find what you're looking for, okay? If you're looking for pain, you're going to find pain. If you're looking for somebody doing something wrong, what's that other, if you're looking for the devil, you'll find him behind every tree. Okay. If you're not looking for the devil, he'll pretty much leave you alone. Now, I've really had an opportunity to think about why that's true. And I've come up with two possible reasons. The first one is that because we are naturally creative beings and we're always manifesting with our thoughts, it just makes sense that if you're continually looking for something, if you believe something is true, the universe is going to send you evidence, or you'll actually create the evidence to back up what you are believing and attract those things to you, into your life, because the universe is constantly trying to give you what you're asking for, right? The second reason might be that you really only see those things you focus on, okay? If you're only focusing on the bad, that's all you're going to see. That's how our minds work. That's not how our hearts work. That's how our minds work. That's why we talk about the fact that the Bible reveals what kind of person you are, because the Bible is absolutely full of contradictions. So people largely see in it what they're drawn to. Judgmental people focus on the parts about sin and judgment. People with self-esteem issues focus on the parts that describe us as unworthy, sinful wretches. Loving, open-hearted people are drawn to the scriptures about mercy and kindness and forgiveness. Simply put, again, we usually find what we're looking for. And in this last chapter, Danielle Laporte is encouraging us to look for love and beauty as much as we possibly can. But sometimes it takes a minute to show up. She says, always see the beauty. Begin to focus on the beauty of any situation. And you know what will happen? Some ugliness and chaos are going to show up for your attention, like moths to a flame. Okay, so anytime you're looking for, sometimes those little moths, they're drawn, because I heard this saying one time too, darkness is always seeking the light. So if you're full of light, darkness is going to kind of be attracted to you. But that's just a distraction, she says. Relax into peace, and you know what you can expect at first? The mind noise is going to get more shrill. When you first commit to choosing joy, old sorrows might surface. The swing between higher states of being and old memories is just a cycle of purification. It's just giving you the opportunity to say, I could go back down this path that I always go down of feeling sorry for myself or hating this person, but I'm going to stop here and be reflective and not go down that path. It's just, I get to choose which path I'm going to walk down. But this is how progress happens, she says. The pendulum of awareness sweeps between our luminosity, okay, our enlightenment, and our density, our flesh. We are being trained, or are training ourselves, to become more steady in our heart. It can be wearisome for sure, But eventually, we'll have swept out enough closeted skeletons and energy blocks that we will find some calm. In this clearer space, the reactivity of the subconscious won't be as extreme, and there will be less sweeping and more inner peace. Dancers stay balanced by fixing their eyes on one focal point. Likewise, in life, a steady intention allows for optimal flexibility. In the waves of change, let the light of your heart be the focal point. Your heart will notice what we all have in common. Focus on that. Your heart will show you a more beautiful vision of the future. Focus on that. Your heart will show you what to be grateful for. Focus on that. We do not need to focus on fixing ourselves, and I'll add, or on fixing anybody else. As we focus on living from our heart's center, from love, anything that's not in alignment with love will fall away. None of us are in need of more judgment or more fault finding. Stop looking for the reasons that people and things are less than acceptable. Focus on celebrating rather than critiquing. What we are all in need of is more loving kindness. And when that begins to flow, anything that's out of sorts will naturally come into balance. What we focus on grows. So focus on love at all times. Here is a simple guiding question to ask yourself every day. How can all beings be happy and free? And what is my personal contribution to that? I can start with the golden rule, doing unto others as I would have done to me, which leads us to the unified field of love where we understand that the other is also me. A strong mind focuses forward by seeing the beauty in every situation, always by seeing the beauty. Always be seeing the beauty. Ephesians 5:13, everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes a light. All right, so I'm going to add this. Even darkness, when darkness is illuminated by light, it's no longer dark. It becomes light. That's the nature of light. That's what it does. That's why darkness, even whether it knows it or not, is always seeking the light. When you can find the beauty in the ugly, you can change the ugly into the beautiful. This is deep light work and requires diligence. The people or situations that repulse you, create a loving thought about them, such as, we're all from the same source. If there is agony in your body or in your mind, can you find one beautiful aspect of what you're going through? Maybe it's that you're slowing down, or that you're more aware of your body and what's going on in it. Switch the thought that spots the reason to be upset or repulsed, and focus on the sweet in the bittersweet. Remember I said one time, when you look at a donut, are you going to look at the donut, or are you going to focus on the hole? Are you going to focus on what's not there, or think, I have a whole donut. The hole is a lot smaller than the whole donut. All right, so she's saying just switch where your focus is going. There is always light in the midst of darkness. Look for it. When you can identify she's repeating herself. When you can identify the beautiful in the ugly, what once appeared undesirable is now transformed into something that belongs, and you have made love real. And from here, you can create a more beautiful future. Being a warrior of light isn't as much about fighting the darkness as it is about focusing on love while ignorance tries to distract us. I'm going to say that again. Being a warrior of light isn't as much about fighting the darkness as it is about focusing on love while ignorance tries to distract us. And that's what you need to treat it as, a distraction. Keep giving yourself the love it requires every day by developing the practice of loving kindness. That's the healing methodology we're all looking for. While you're creating a beautiful vision of the future by answering the question, how can all beings be happy and free? Don't forget to include yourself. Or, as my title today is, don't forget to be your own Valentine, your best friend, your biggest supporter and fan. Because once you have mastered that, loving yourself, true love will spread to everyone else around you. And so that's how she ends the book. This is how she ends the book with this. Hopelessness feeds the purveyors of division and doom. Don't go there. Faith is fueled by community. Look into the eyes of the person or the animal next to you with the intention of seeing their light, and you will find it everywhere. Let's stick together and hold hands every step of the way. Always with love, Danielle. So that's the end of her book, which I love. I absolutely love that book called How to Be Loving. So happy early Valentine's Day, everyone. Love yourself unconditionally first, and then everything else will fall into place. Amen? All right. Let's stand together. Miss Diane is not here this morning, but Mr. Benny is going to help me sing our closing song.
Blessed always, blessed always, for the arms of God surround us. Let our joy be so triumphant that we rest in God and say Amen. Blessed always, blessed always, for the arms of God surround us. Let our joy be so triumphant that we rest in God and say Amen.
Be at peace. Have a wonderful week. Happy Valentine's Day. Love yourself. I love you.